guys to laugh and clap and do exactly what you did just then, actually. All right, I'm just waiting for the big nod from 2 minutes or 2 seconds? 2 minutes. Talk amongst yourselves. Who's already bought their tickets for the... Are they on sale yet, now that I've said that? All right. Who's waiting, and as soon as, like, you'll be on the computer on the morning, like, bang. Yeah, all right. Good to hear. Good to hear. Well, hopefully this discussion won't put you off. Did you consider that the backfire effect? Can I just tell you, Ngoc at the end did two lots of Medea today. Yes. 2 lots of Medea. Round of applause for that. Thank you. Good Lord, anybody else done 2 lots of Medea? They're at home in fetal position. Not doing this. All right, welcome. And welcome to a very special evening at the Bill Brown Theatre in South Brisbane. Now, this is being broadcast around the world and into your home, wherever it is you're watching or listening through Facebook Live tonight. My name is Kelly Higgins-Devine. I'm the evening's presenter on ABC Radio Brisbane and Queensland. I'll be your host for this exclusive forum, Boy Swallows Universe from Page to Stage. First, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we gather tonight, the Turrbal and Yagara people. I pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. And could you also put your hands together and recognise the collaboration and cooperation of Queensland Theatre, Brisbane Festival and the Queensland Performing Arts Centre, which has made possible this evening's discussion, but also the magnificent production that you are going to eventually see. Now look, anybody who's been a regular reader of the Weekend Australian and the Courier Mail would be well familiar with author Trent Dalton's ability to tell a story. Trent has 2 Walkley Awards for excellence in journalism. Look, his pool room's chockers. He's won the Kennedy Award for excellence in New South Wales journalism and the National News Awards Features Journalist of the Year multiple times. Of course, multiple awards for Boy Swallows Universe. I mean, we knew he could write, but who could have expected this absolute cracker of a tale? Boy Swallows, and it is a cracker. Boy Swallows Universe is this sinuous mix of fact and fiction. It combines true aspects of Trent's childhood with his bold imagination. And it's a tale of coming of age, not just of its major protagonist, the 12-year-old Eli Bell, but of Brisbane itself. And I was amused to read an American review that described Eli as a foul-mouthed Tom Sawyer. Yeah, that's Australia for you. Trent Dalton's Boy Swallows Universe does exactly that. It swallows the hopes and dreams of an intelligent child and his brother Gus, who refuses to talk, along with his drug-addicted mother, the drug-dealing stepfather. There's an alcoholic dad with a voracious appetite for reading, and a cast full of criminal types that range from a dodgy, maybe murderous babysitter to men who'd kill you without batting an eyelid.
Oh, Brisbane.
Nothing's changed. Throw in a mysterious red phone, a mongoose bike, Boggo Road jail, Eli's plucky love interest, and you have a story that's so Brisbane, you can smell the petrichor rising from the pages.
Oh, you're amazing.
Thank you.
That is amazing.
So how do we get those pages to a stage? Let me introduce the people that will help you gain a deeper understanding of the production that you'll see as part of the Brisbane Festival from August 30 to September 18. The author himself, please welcome Trent Dalton.
Thank you. Yes. Kelly Higgins-Devine. Bloody Brisbane treasure.
Thank you. The man who has been a director, writer, theatre maker, and took on this Herculean task of adapting this book for the stage, Tim McGarry. And Vietnamese-Australian actor and playwright Ngoc Phan, who can be seen in movies and series such as At World's End and Secrets and Lies. She's been an actor and artist in residence at Le Boite Theatre. She's worked with Queensland Theatre to research and develop her play, My Father Who Slept in a Zoo. And Ngoc, yeah, we're looking forward to that one. Ngoc will be bringing to life the character of drug importer Back Off Big Dang. Ngoc Phan.
Yeah.
All right, Trent, let's kick off. I mean, your baby's growing up. When you were writing this book, did you envisage it as a play or a movie?
Oh, Kelly, I thought 5 people would read that book. I swear, it's like my beautiful wife, my mum, and my 3 older brothers. And I've been thinking, like, there's so much love in this room. Like, you guys are beautiful. Like, thank you. Honestly, just amazing to come support this thing. And I just keep thinking of the fear. And it just hit me just then. Like, I was scared, Kelly. Like, I was scared about that, about writing that thing. And I just look back and I get chills thinking, what if I didn't? Like, this is
So are you
freaking
scared of
beautiful
your family's reaction to it because part of it is truth, or that people actually, because they loved your work in the Weekend Australian, the Courier Mail, that they'd read the book and go, oh, Trent, should have stuck to that.
Oh, that. Yeah. No, that's a real thing. That is so true. Like, stay in your box, stay in your field, and stay in your lane. And it's so important not to do that. And this thing has taught me the power of that. And I thought all that was just sort of Anthony Robbins nonsense. But it's so true that you just need to step out and really challenge yourself. And when I say the fear, it's that, the fear of complete failure and going too ambitious. And my brain worries me a lot sometimes, and worrying that people would think certain things about my brain. And then, but fear mostly of people misunderstanding the people I love most in my life. If she's watching my mum, and largely, and my old man who's not with us anymore, and not, God, I'm getting emotional just because it's so beautiful, and my dad would flip and love this, like, and man, it's just, I look out and I just go, why was I worried? Why was I worried? Because while I was worried, I underestimated the human heart and the people of Brisbane. It was the people of Brisbane that made this book what it is, and it's the people of Brisbane.
Absolutely.
It's so touching to be here in this amazing theatre, in this amazing theatre company, and with you, and Loretta and ABC Brisbane, and hear these Brisbane people, these beautiful people who lived in Brisbane all their lives probably, and just celebrating this thing that you guys built. And it's very deep to me, and it's all hit me in the past 5 minutes. So
does this make it more real? Because of course COVID sucked the fun out of everything last year. So does this event actually make it a bit more real for you?
Well, let me tell you, and Kelly, today's been amazing because the beautiful folks here, Tony and the whole design gang let us go out on the stage that they've built, and it's unbelievable. It's like something I've never ever seen in this city, and the set is my head come to life, and it's unbelievable. This thing's
kind of frightening, isn't it?
Like, this thing's gonna take you to Darra, to Brackenridge, via the Gap. It's going to take you all the way to the edge of the universe and to the freaking flesh of a human heart. And it's unflippin' believable what they're doing back there. And so that got really real. And now I'm seeing you guys and it's feeling very real. And, that COVID stuff only kind of really made me, I, again, was just worried about being in the audience, perhaps with mum. My only downside fear of this is mum. Is how, honestly, like, how's mum going to go watching some of this stuff? Honestly, and we've spoken all the time about it. And then, like, I'm like, maybe we just get a seat, mum, where we sit in the back and you can bail if you want. And, but even, she's ready for it just as much as I am. And COVID taught us that, to forget any bloody little small worries you've got and just appreciate every last bloody thing you've got going on in your life, hasn't it? So that's how I feel about that.
Now, Tim McGarry, you've worked on many big productions, some great Australian stories over the years. Jackie French's Hitler's Daughter, The Peasant Prince, The True Story of Mao's Last Dancer, Sonia Hartnett's Thursday's Child. So what were the moments and the characters from Boy Swallow's universe that made you want to tackle this adaptation?
I think what I loved about it, first when I first read it, and I read it literally in like less than 36 hours. I started reading on the Monday morning, and by the Tuesday afternoon, I read it and I thought, wow, this is incredible. Yeah. And I think what I loved, I mean, there are so many things I loved about it. The characters were so real and so dramatic, and I could see it. You know, sometimes you read many novels, and you can't quite picture it. But as soon as I read this, from the moment I started reading it, I could see it on stage. I could see things happening. I could see the characters coming and going. I could see the drama and the intense drama that Trent had written into it. So there are many moments that kind of captured me. I guess what I really loved was the magical realism. Because in theatre captures magical realism really beautifully. Like, I'm choking up now thinking, and I've seen a bit of movement done in the creative development of the magic car. You know, it's just such a stunning moment in the book, and I think it'll be a stunning moment on stage. So there are many magical moments that Trent has written that are incredibly theatrical. It's like when you wrote it, did you imagine? I can see it. Did you imagine it live as a theatre show? It just kind of jumped out at me. So I was captured by many aspects, and I guess the characters that jumped out the most was Eli, of course. He's just such a beautiful soul trying to reconcile this extraordinary life around him and the trauma that he had been through. But the other character that struck personally to me was Slim, because my grandfather used to smoke Champion Ruby Ready Rubbed, and he was a man I just loved and adored. And he used to, come and stay with us, and we'd all share the same, and he'd lie in bed smoking, and he'd recite Henry Lawson. And so I immediately felt an absolute affinity with Slim. He just felt like my grandpa. It was beautiful, yeah. So many moments that jumped at me.
Ngoc, you're nodding as Tim's talking. So for you, I mean, as a playwright as well, how was it for you reading this? Which characters were jumping out for you?
Well, obviously Bick. I would say Eli, for me as a playwright, especially with, I was just talking backstage with Trent and Tim about my own play. That story about Eli and that coming of age and struggling with identity and being influenced by the people and the environment around him when he's got this surging imagination and longing for love in him. That was something that I was completely drawn to as personally as a person, and then personally as a person, obviously as a person, and I have to say Bick, because it was just so refreshing to see such a strong, powerful Vietnamese woman in a modern classic, well, what is now a modern classic, and knowing, even though I didn't grow up in Brisbane, I actually grew up in Alice Springs, but knowing that community of Vietnamese people and the tribe and the music and the joy, but the stoicism and the need for survival and the glamour and the robustness, that's something that I was like, oh, that's so rad.
I've seen a picture of Ngoc as Bick. She's gonna steal the show. She is gonna steal the flip, and well, it's gonna be a battle between Darren Dang and Bick Dang. But she looks. It was mind-blowing how cool she looks.
And is that really weird for you? Like, Trent, like, kind of going, that, I mean, you said it before with the set, but like seeing people embody, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be...
Well, you're looking at me. No, that was one of my questions.
You know, like when people come in and they're like, boom, this is the character. And then you go, holy crap, that, can I swear? No. Holy beep, that's what I saw in my head. And you,
But when I saw you, I'm telling you, everything surrounding this thing, Ngoc, is like fated. And guess what her middle name is? Bick. Sorry, I mean, that's flipping amazing. But she's giving design wardrobe ideas to create this pic that I saw, and it made freaking sense because you know that world, and it was so beautiful. That's what gets me excited, and that's what starts making it real. So, and then hearing you talk just now, and then hearing the play that she's writing. If you thought Boy Swallows Universe was interesting, her story is unflipping amazing. So,
back to you.
yeah.
Back to you.
Get ready for that. Get ready for that.
Now, Tim McGarry, there's a quote in the book from Eli. Lyle says he approaches a drug deal in the same way he approaches mum when she's in a bad mood. Stay on your toes, stay alert, don't let them stand too close to the kitchen knives. Be flexible, patient, adaptable. The buyer/angry mum is always right. Are these things you're thinking about as you're starting to adapt this book? That there are expectations, and that if it isn't right, there's a very angry room of people.
You know, I have very successfully, one of the things I've very successfully done has put out of my head the notion there would be an audience. Okay. I've just really been focused on the words.
That's necessary, is it, for success?
And I've realised tonight that, yes, there is going to be an audience, and actually what I have been working on for about 2.5 years will actually be seen. And when we saw the set, I thought, oh my God, it's actually going to happen. Finally, it's going to happen. Yeah. So I have to say, when I started the adaptation process, and for the first draft, it took me about 8 or 9 months. The book, when I first read it, it hadn't been published, so there was no hype around it. And when I started to write and work on it, and Trent and I were talking about it, and we were working with Sam Strong, the director, and who's the dramaturg of the piece, there was no pressure. I had no pressure in terms of getting it right, which has been great. Yeah. because I was able to kind of take my time and really think about it and pour ideas back to Trent and to Sam and go, what about this, and I think this should be here, and I think that could go, and I think that should stay. So I didn't feel the pressure, but you know, pressure makes diamonds.
Yes.
So
what was the first?
Hopefully, and I feel that with and it's a collaborative effort with the creative team, with the fantastic actors. I think it's going to be a very special, epic event. Yeah.
What was that first meeting like between you two? With it, you know, you're in many ways handing over the baby to somebody else.
Well, you know, it's funny. I always love it when an author is involved. I always get nervous when an author says, no, I don't want anything to do with it. I'll just see it on opening night. That worries me. Worries me enormously. I remember you mentioned Sonia Hartnett. Sonia Hartnett, a show that I co-wrote with 2 chums and colleagues. She hadn't seen anything about it, not a thing. And she came to opening night and she sat next to me, and I was literally like... I thought I could barely breathe as she was listening to it, and then at the end of the show she said, "You can let go of the chair now." And I was like, "Really?" And she goes, "Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. It's good. I really enjoyed it. I can't believe And she said to me, "I can't believe I wrote those lines, but anyway, I think it's fine." Yeah, the meeting, we had a great meeting. It was great. We talked about the process and how it was going to work, and is that okay, Trent, if I come to you and talk to you about this and that? And you know, it was an open book and said, yeah, anything. Absolutely.
He's like a really beautiful dude. Like, he's like, but the thing was, I read his first draft, and you know, I'm kind of naturally fairly optimistic, so I'm a pretty easy win. But I swear, the guy's pretty brilliant. I wrote all I had, like as far as notes, by the end, and I wrote it, like he kindly gave me, and it's a really sort of cool thing to do, is to give someone a Word document that they can write on. You know what I mean? Most people send PDFs, so like, don't touch my masterpiece kind of thing. And I just put at the end, after the final scene, I just wrote, yes, capital letters, yes, and then I stretched the F word out like 10 centimetres. F, yes. So I was pretty happy, and I swear, the only notes I was even in those early stages, it was just really anything I'd sort of said, and that's why I love Tim. He's so like, I just have strange notes like, can you just not make these guys sound like they're in that TV show Underbelly? Yeah. And so a lot of actors will think of a Brisbane person on the fringes living in Bracken Ridge. They'll make that guy sound like, nah, go down and get us a packet of Winnie Blues, will you? Now, there are people who sound like that in Brackenridge, I said to Tim, but not all of us do. And some of us read books back in the 80s, and it was just sort of stuff like that. And then, you know, it was just little fine-tuned stuff. And as far as that sort of thing with Tim, I was just like, I felt really safe from the first draft.
Yeah.
It was pretty terrifying, though, sending it to him. I have to say, I thought, when will I send him this draft? When will I send it? And, you know, the people above us do all the contracts and all, and within the very thick contract, there's one line that the writer always remembers, and that is, the author has 30 days to accept or reject the draft. And I kept thinking, that's awful. Okay, when will I send it?
Tell me
and
I was 30 days.
30 days. Well, I was about to send it,
and
I said to Sam Strong, I might hold off. I'm going to go and I stalked you. I went and saw Trent speak at the Sydney Writers' Festival, and I sat there up the back with lots of notes, and I have to say, 5 minutes into the talk, the fire alarms went off, and I thought, that's true. Oh my God, I've got a day out of rehearsal to come to see this, and the fire alarms go off. I'm going to miss the whole thing. Anyway, Trent graciously came back, and then Matt Condon, wasn't it, who asked Trent his favourite part of the piece. And Trent talked about the favourite part, and then he read a bit from it, and I went home and I went, holy Mary, Sam, I can't send it to Trent because he talked about one part of the script that I really need to think about and go back and rewrite. So I went and rewrote it. And then I thought, now I'm ready to send it. And I was going overseas, and I thought, I'll send it just before, when we were allowed to go overseas, you know.
Yeah, it's a long time
ago. So I thought, I'll send it just before I get on the plane, because then it'll be 30 days, I've got my holiday, I won't think about it, I'll be running around New York being a tourist. And I get on the plane, I push send, I get off the plane, and I'm so tired of the travelator going around. I thought, I wonder if this airport's got Wi-Fi. And the Wi-Fi, and then Trent's email comes in. Holy smokes, Tim! And I nearly fell on the travelator. I was like, oh my God.
And one thing I hadn't said is that, I didn't say much, but there was the emotion you'd put into it. I was really touched by. There was scenes that, you write a book, you write it 6 times. You sort of, every scene that was in that book, I'd mulled over and had been edited, and you know it, and you've read it, and yet he writes a scene. He wrote the scene where Eli busts into Boggo Road Women's, and he's, for me, it's the most poignant scene in the whole book, probably. And I was weeping, and I just thought, man, you've done it, and it's just like, it's like, I know that scene, like I wrote it, and it was kind of from my own life and my need to see my mum and stuff. But you wrote, it felt new and beautiful,
That's the scene I had to rewrite. That was it. That was it. He spoke very passionately about it, and I went, I really need more time on that scene.
I'm going to shut up. I want to hear more from Ngoc. But I said it to there was a table read, and I just said, look, and I told them some of the stories, and I just said this really impassioned sort of thing. It's just like, if you want to take one thing from that book, it's the emotion of that kid and missing someone on Christmas Day and all that. Like, it's just like, that's why I wrote from that space. I wrote the entire book from that emotional space that never leaves, and so I'm so glad that you wrote your script with that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Beautiful. There are a couple of very special guests in the audience tonight. Can I get John Kotzis, Chief Executive at QPAC, to stand up? Because there's a question I'd like to put to you, John. Hi, John. Trent's spoken about being, deeply moved when he thinks about seeing places that are dear to him sort of come to life in the theatre, and that magic that someone from Brackenridge or Darra or The Gap is going to see when they, come to see Boy Swallows Universe. How important is it that we share stories like this at QPAC?
Look, I think it's extremely important that we see ourselves on stage. And when there's markers, particularly geographic markers, that we recognise Darra or we recognise Brackenridge, I think it's really important that we feel a sense of belonging. And I think that's one of the great things that the arts do. But also it goes further, because some of the themes that Tim is talking about is the fact that they're quite universal. So what I love about this story is that it's quite local, but it actually has a really broad global appeal. And I think that's the wonderful fantasy of it and the reality of it. So that's the exciting thing.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Agreed.
I agree.
We're taking questions from some of our Facebook Live audience as well. So good evening once again to everybody who is watching via Facebook tonight. Narelle asks, I don't know if you want to give this away, which characters have been cut out of the script that you regret that you had to leave out?
That's a great question.
Are you going to answer it, Tim?
I can almost answer it. I won't name names, I won't name which characters, but I have to say all the fundamental characters, and I haven't added them up, but I think there's about 14 or 16 main characters. They're all there. They're all there. All the ones that, and you know, funnily enough, I read the book 15 times. And when I read it last week, I was listening to the audio recording, which is fantastic, I have to tell you. And I thought to myself, no, that character's there, that character's there, that character's there. They're all there. They may not have the gravitas that they did in the novel, but they are there. And it's important that they are there in some shape or form. But all the main characters are there. So the actors, I think there's, Lee can help me here, 11, 12 actors, I think. Is that right, Amanda? 11 or 12 actors. They're playing about, I'm going to have a guess and say 25, 30 roles.
Okay.
Yeah. So the actors will be transforming and playing different roles.
Okay. Now, just talking about that, Ngoc Phan, you will be bringing to life Big Dang, and the first person to do that on a stage, as will the entire cast.
No pressure.
Yeah. So how are you approaching that? That must be exciting, though, to be the first person to embody this character.
First of all, thank you, Trent, for writing her. But it's an unbelievable honour, and it's like because she's such a big character. I'm like, oh my God, it's so massive. But I guess for me, I have to get down to what drives her love, like where does she lead from her heart, and what is the thing that she's willing to sacrifice, and what's the thing that she's to raise her family. What's the thing that that she is most proud of about herself, and what's something that she wants to bring forward and not be apologetic about, and especially with Asian characters, sometimes, especially as an actor, I get cast as when you get the Asian mum or doctor or prostitute or what have you, it's very two-dimensional. And so the complexity of Beck and her relationship to her community, her relationship to her son, her relationship to the people back in Vietnam, that's all starting to brew and sizzle inside of me, and thinking about the women and the Vietnamese community that I grew up with, and remembering all those women who would be like, you get over there, you stop doing that, and telling their husbands what to do, and just bringing that strength and power to this role is something I really want to embody, but it solely comes from where's her love and where does it sit. Yeah.
And love's obviously the core, as you've talked about tonight, Trent. Love's at the core of the story.
Well, it's so beautiful to hear you talk, because like that my wife and I lived in Darra like 6 years, and that's Quy Hung restaurant. That's this, if you guys have been to Darra, it's, the women you see there are just exactly as Ngoc just described. You're talking about matriarchs who are running the restaurant, and they are ordering people around, and they are keeping things afloat, often to send money back home to people less well off. And at the same time, on Saturday night, they're going down to sing Calling Occupants of Interplanetary Craft.
Yep.
And in their Saturday night...
People love their ballads, by the way. They love their love ballads. They love that grandeur. Sorry to interrupt.
Totally, and that's it. And just, that's that thing that I fell in love with in Darra is just exactly what Ngoc's just describing just then, and it's so cool that you describe it that way, and that's what we saw every Saturday night. We'd go down for salt and pepper, crab and mud crab, and chili mud crab, folks down at Quee Hong, you cannot beat it. And it's like, so it's just so cool to sort of hear that stuff. And but the love is at the central theme of this, and as John beautifully said, that's the universal thing. Like I've got kids in South Korea writing me letters about Eli Bell, and kids in Poland, and kids in bloody who had read the book in Hebrew, saying thank you for showing me that all I need is just a sliver of love in my life, and I'll get through this situation that I'm in. Even though this little book that's set in Dara, it's love. I'm so glad you mentioned that word. It's absolutely at the core of everything.
Yeah, but every place has its Dara. Every place has its gap. Every place, these are places that will resonate with people around the world as well, because they've probably lived in their version of it. Yeah.
Oh, and everyone in this audience is familiar with it. And that's everyone knows that Housing Commission red brick. We all know it in Brisbane, and there's versions of that right across the world. Yeah.
Well, I grew up in army housing, because Dad was in the army, so I know it well.
Yeah.
Very, very familiar.
Definitely, and that's what I love when people come up and go, thanks for talking about my house. My house wasn't necessarily in New Farm or West End. It was out in bloody Chermside, and it's like, that's cool. I love that, and I love that. Just what John's saying, we might get people from Chermside coming to see this thing and going, wow. It's like that's great. Yeah.
Oh, remember when it didn't have its own postcode? The shopping centre, that is. One of our other special guests tonight is Louise Betzina, Artistic Director at Brisbane Festival. Yeah, Louise. Oh, hello, sorry. Louise, as Artistic Director of the festival, what prompted you to take a chance on a book, co-commission it as a theatre production as part of the festival program?
Well, I feel like all of the answers have been said. Thank you so much. I think the answers, in a way, have been said because of the way that Trent has spoken tonight. But look, it's a funny story in a way, because I actually hadn't officially started in my role yet, and I'm sitting next to a board member, Philip Bacon, and I remember it distinctly, but I had a conversation with Sam, and I have known Trent and known of Trent for a long time, and he's a huge, identity of the city. And for me, always coming into the role of Artistic Director of Brisbane Festival, I was so excited to embrace Brisbane. Boldly Brisbane is our vision, and I don't think we'd quite articulated it yet, Charlie, but it was definitely where we were heading. So it was a bit of a no-brainer, but I was chatting with Sam Strong, and I'd finally read the book, and Sam said, look, I really need to know, Lou, what do you want to do about this? And we had a 20-minute conversation. I was making dinner for my kids, hadn't really officially started, talked to Charlie about it, had talked to Kate. I'm like, you talk about jumping in head first and that emotion, that was exactly the same instinct. It was, this is the play that we have to do. This has to be a Brisbane Festival production. It has to be, at the time, in my first year as Artistic Director, COVID had other plans, of course, but it was such an easy decision to make. And so then, of course, bringing it to the board and saying, so this is the first project. But again, for the board, it was so easy to say yes to, because it's extraordinary. It's all of the things, that we've talked about. And what I love about the fact that we've had this, extra bit of time, Brisbane Festival, we had our year last year, and we went to the suburbs, we went to Darra, we went to Brackenridge, went to the Gap. And, the great gift of festivals, it can be so many different things, and we adapted. And now that this is finally going to take to the stage and be the world premiere in the festival this year, we can also have a connection across the city and bring parts of this play, and Trent's, going to potentially pop up in a suburb here or there, which
I am.
adds to... You are, I know. Grand reveal. But I love that, you know, talking to both Lee and John, and as we're, you know, working on what this experience is, we're all bringing our different things to the table. Queensland Theatre, QPAC, Brisbane Festival, and to be able to actually realise something. This doesn't happen without a whole lot of people coming together, having a huge amount of faith in an idea. You know, I was at that play reading that you talked about, and I remember walking away and we were all in tears sitting around that room because it was so emotional to hear your story. So it's an absolute honour and a privilege to have this in the Brisbane Festival. So thank you.
Oh, man, thank you. Thank you, John.
You know, I think once COVID settles down that there is a business there for somebody to actually do Boy Swallows Universe tours of Brisbane. Like, get the bus, you start, are you going to do that? Darunala, you know, then you get a reenactment of the gang fight, then you're off to the City Hall, you know, you're up in the tower, you know, somebody tries to attack you with an axe, you back down, you know, you're out to the Gap, and then you end up at Vietnamese for dinner. Perfect.
Oh, man.
That's my retirement retirement idea. Look, one of the things I do want to ask about is the violence in the play, in the play and in the book, are obviously intrinsic to what goes on. But how do you address that when you're writing it for a stage?
I think it is absolutely paramount that it's there. It's part of the story. It happens in life, and we have to. I don't have to, the actors will have to, and Sam as the director will work that through in a way that it has to be there, and it's ugly and it's difficult to see, but that's part of the drama of the piece, and that was part of Trent's life, and it's absolutely paramount that in some way it's there. So it won't be a work for 12-year-olds. It's a work that is going to be hard-hitting, it's going to be honest, it's going to be, I hope, heartfelt, but you can't shy away from, you just can't shy away from that drama. That was life. That was how life was, and that's how life is for some people.
Oh, still,
I mean that is the tragedy of society. Not to get too heavy and deep, but that's one of the things we as a society, internationally, not just here in Australia, deal with every day, and that is the issues that are being talked about right now. And so, in a way, theatre, what theatre does, it reflects life. And this work of Trent's absolutely reflects life.
My mum would be the first one to be mega pissed off if we didn't go hard on the reality of violence against women.
Yeah. And it
was
goes
that hard to write initially for you?
Oh, it was easily the hardest parts to write, and you know that's an ongoing thing. That's still probably the hardest aspect for her to even sort of, you know, go near, but it's so important. And things that she's told me even after this book, like, I mean, Kelly, I put 5% of what that woman survived in that book, you know, and that's a fact. And, you know, she's told me things after the fact, and this book's prompted a lot of amazing conversations, you know, on our back deck with Cointreau on ice. And
how very 1980s of you.
Cointreau on ice is the crack cocaine of the liquor cabinet. Try it. And it's been so beautiful, and she has been such a kind of, if I write about journalistically, the pieces she's most proud of that I write are the stories that I've done on domestic violence in this city. And, you know, so I'm so glad that Tim didn't hold back from that in this play that everyone's going to see, you know, and it's a massive issue. To me, it's the most important issue we need to address in Australia. We get caught up in a lot of things in Australia, and I would be so grateful if this play just puts a massive spotlight on it for all to see, while still telling an adventure and something that's so fun and so wondrous and big, but something that still doesn't shy away from that, and that's so important.
Yeah. Well, a comment. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
A couple of comments that have come through from the people who are watching on Facebook Live tonight. Hayley says, I feel like I'm sitting in a cosy lounge room, fire going with a close book club group. Aww. So that's nice.
Yeah, it's nice. This is beautiful.
And Nicole says, my partner's upbringing in life was very similar to Trent's, shows that where you come from doesn't determine or define who you can become.
True.
Now, I just want to talk about some of the props. The red phone. Now, the red phone, obviously.
Oh, yes.
Still, right, okay, just checking.
Absolutely.
What the heck? What is the red phone? And I'm just getting, Catherine says, I'm still confused as to the meaning of it.
Oh, well, the red phone's hilarious because like everyone goes, oh, gee, I love that magical realism bit with the red telephone. And I'm like, well, yeah, well, in the 1980s, like 1984, my brother taps me on the shoulder. We go into a back room in this guy's house. It's actually at Ipswich, is where it was. And it wasn't Darra, it was Ipswich. Brassel, and we crawl into this. My mum had fallen in love with this guy, like broken up with my dad, fallen in love with this guy who was a really lovely guy, but happened to be a successful heroin dealer. That's all. And
good to be successful.
Yeah. But he was,
that's important. No matter what you do in life, Trent. Wasn't a failed drug dealer. No, I was darn fine at it.
That's funny. Good to be successful. Well, I'm sure that what would the 10 years he spent in Boggo Road, he was quickly unsuccessful. But that guy had a secret room that Joel found, you know, underneath his house. And one day, my brothers and I, this is Dalton brother gospel. This is not my fantasy or anything. This is like stuff I'd have beers at Bribey Island with my brothers, and we'd just be like, do you guys remember that frickin' secret room we found? I'll call him Lyle, under Lyle's bedroom. And Joel would be just like, yeah, man, that was the room. And like, that's where, like, you know, they sort of did stuff and did like nefarious things. And if this guy was ever in a jam, he could hide out in this secret room that he had under his house. Anyway, this day Joel gets in there and it's vivid. Like, I became a writer in that moment where I peek my head in. There's Joel, Ben, Jesse, Trent. I'm the youngest. Joel and Ben go in, and then Jesse and Trent are like leaning our heads into this secret sort of chasm that led into this earth floor kind of room. And Joel's looking around just going, can you believe this? And we all set our eyes on one thing that's in this room, and it's a rotary dial red telephone.
Yeah.
Like, that's just, like, I wrote that book because of that. Like, I'd always gone like, and I'd said to the editor, Catherine Milne, she'd come up to Brisbane and said, oh, you know, I've read your magazine pieces. I think you've got a book in you. And I'd told her that story that I just told you guys. And I said, I want to write a book about who's on the other end of that red telephone. And in answer, but if you want to know what it's all about, the answer, in terms of, I suspect what that question is regarding is who the hell is Eli talking to? And the answer to that is in the phone number that he calls. It's absolutely there. It's there.
Oh.
It's in the seven-digit phone number that he calls, and every answer that she needs is in that number.
All right. Now she's skimming. You can just see her going through the book. So, does anybody on the stage know? Have you been able to find a red rotary phone? I'm looking at Lee Lewis's artistic director.
Wow,
Yes, we've got a red rotary phone. Was that as hard to find as the mongoose bike?
Yes, but there have been extraordinary moments of discovery across Kelly. Everybody should know we found the mongoose bike in Kelly's garage.
But I'll ask you a question in just a tick, Lee. But Lee was showing me the set, and as I was preparing for tonight, and we were talking about the bike that was just off set, and Michaela Tynan from Quebec said, oh, is that the bike? And Lee said, oh, we can't find a mongoose. They're so expensive, and they are. And we just can't get one. And in the back of my head, my husband had been doing this project on a bike for my nephew. And you know how it is when your husband's doing projects, you don't pay attention. Like, you know, that's secret men's business, and I'm not interested in that. So anyhow, but the word mongoose sort of sparked something in my memory, and I said to Lee, I think I've got a mongoose bike in my shed that we did up for my nephew, and he never rode it. And as it turned out, I said, I'll get Craig to send me a photo. So I went, there you go, is that a mongoose bike? And your jaw dropped. It was like, yes, yes. So yeah, the closest I'm ever going to get to the stage for Queensland Theatre is my mongoose bike.
That's so cool.
So all yours for as long as you need it. And then then it gets a picture with Trent, and then we try to sell it.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Cha-ching! And Lee, I might ask you this question. How did you find that special person to play Eli Bell? This is a question from Katrina.
Oh, Katrina, that was a long process led by the extraordinary director Sam Strong in conversation with both Tim and Trent, and they did a lot of auditions, talked about pretty much every young actor in the country, looked at a lot of photos, many backwards and forwards conversations until finally they decided on the fabulous Joe Klotzek, who is a Brisbane boy. Born and bred, who everybody will have just seen in The Dry. He is a wonderful rising star, and it also turns out that he got his start at Queensland Theatre in our youth ensembles. So, one of those things about fate.
No,
you know, I think I remember the first moment that he got to meet you, Trent, and he was shaking like a leaf. He was like, I can't believe I get to meet him. And you go, and I don't know that there would have been another actor in the country more excited to be getting to play Eli in his hometown, knowing that this is a play that we're making for the whole world. It kind of feels perfect.
Yeah.
So, Joe Klotzek.
Yeah, he's going to be brilliant. Lee, can I ask you a very simple question? Why does this play matter?
Oh. A story like this only comes along once in a generation. And that's not just for Brisbane, that's in Australia. And this play is essentially going to be a great big bucket of inspiration, because that's what Trent has been for the whole country, definitely over the last year. Trent's words have inspired Tim to spend, 2.5 years of your life trying to craft...
And loving every minute.
Trying to craft a play that will bring that world to life. It's inspired Sam Strong to gather together a huge group of talented artists that'll give years of their life to bring it to life. It's inspired Brisbane Festival to collaborate with Queensland Theatre, to collaborate with QPAC to make sure that we give this beautiful Brisbane story the best opportunity it can to reach around the whole country and cross fingers, the whole world. There's so much inspiration wrapped up in those original words, and that's what we can see tonight in this room. Everybody is inspired to come together, and after a year where we've been so apart, and while we're still apart with family members around the world, with no sense of when that's going to end, really, we need this inspiration. And you realise that great art is our inspiration. So it matters because it's great art, and because great art is the inspiration we all need at the moment. That's why it matters.
Yeah.
And Lee, just another one for you. The 80s have a specific look about them. It's not pretty, but it's specific. I have to ask, was every op shop between here and Cairns, picked over by the people who will be doing the costuming and the design for the show?
I have to give a shout out to, I think, the greatest designer in the country, Renee Mulder.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
This is a labour of love for her. Yes, she has gone through every op shop, and not just up the coast, down the coast, around the country. She has been on eBay. She has been everywhere trying to find exactly the world that Trent has so vividly described for all of us. There's great honour in being the first designer for a work like this, but there's so much pressure because she is the person really who's making real the pictures we've all got in our head. She's the genius that will make us go, that's exactly how I imagined it. And look, I think the play could not be in better hands. Trent, you could not be in better hands. Looking at what she's already done and some of the images that you're going to be seeing over the next few weeks that we start to share with you, seeing the actors' eyes light up when they get to see the beginnings of their costumes, that's all part of the magic and chemistry of what it takes to bring a play to life, to bring a book to life. But yes, if you've got anything in your wardrobes where you go, I'm pretty sure I've got that, if you could just send us an email here at Queensland Theatre. We're still collecting bits and pieces. I've definitely stolen my husband's Star Wars action figures, to go on the stage. So we are borrowing, we are stealing, we're, coming to your house next week to pick up the mongoose. This is a story being made with a lot of love from a lot of people, and there's always room for just that perfect dressing gown, just saying.
Yeah. That's it. Lee Lewis, Artistic Director at Queensland Theatre. Thank you. Okay, in a moment, we'll be handing the questions over to you. So everyone in the theatre here at Bill Brown Theatre, if you could just start thinking about those questions, and when the time comes, hand up and we'll get to you. Just tell us who you are and who you'd want to direct the question to, so you get your chance for a Q&A as well. I wanted to talk about Gus particularly, because Gus doesn't talk, which for a stage play can be something of a challenge, Tim, I would have thought. So how are you addressing that? And was that a bit of a challenge for you as you were starting to adapt this?
It was a massive question, because we all know Gus writes in the air, and he writes very philosophical and some odd things in the air, and that are integral to the story and to the script. So it's still in the air. They're still in the air, literally. It's still some questions around how that will actually work. Sometimes I think it's important for another character to voice it in some way. Sometimes it's not important. Sometimes he can do things and we will start to know almost what he's saying. We will understand what he's saying by how Eli responds. So we will hear that. It's like when you hear sometimes in theatre, you hear someone will speak in another language that's not English that we don't understand, but you'll understand what they've said by the answer or by the response. You'll get it in the response. You may not get it in the actual word. So there are different ways of portraying that, and I suspect there will be some magical ways we will see it appear. Magical ways, which, as Lee said, Renee and the audio-visual people and all the different elements that come together, because creating a work for the stage from a novel particularly is an absolutely collaborative effort. I'm just doing the words. There are other people doing the images and the sound and the feel, and then the actors will get hold of it, and the movement. So it will all come together very collaboratively, and it will be costumed by the people of Brisbane. So it's a massive collaborative effort.
Yeah, and that's clothes we're still wearing, by the way, for those international audience listening tonight.
They come back.
I wanted to ask you, your mum was doing some translation of the novel, I believe. Now, the novel, it's a bit sweary, the language is a bit fruity, mostly on every page. How did she go with that?
Oh, she enjoyed it.
Yeah.
She was like, this is a bit colourful, Ngoc. And I was like, so Tim reached out to me and said, would you mind, and this is what I really appreciated, the mindfulness and the care around getting, just capturing how Vietnamese people would speak to each other, especially in this, the mother and son dynamic. But yeah, when my mum was just reading through the lines, she was like, I'm cutting off what? And I'm like, just the and she's like, okay, it's like this.
This
And
isn't
then-
in the book, but it's just something she said.
And then I even recorded her, and I'm like, give it some gusto, Mum. And she goes, okay. And then she's like, you know, got on her seat. She's like, you know, I actually won't do it justice, but she's like going at it in Vietnamese. And then I'm like, recorded it, sent it to.
Surreal to hear your mum say, yeah.
Because she's quite, you know, quite softly spoken, but then she just had this, you know, freedom and liberation to say some
So
colourful.
what sort of a feedback are you getting then from the Vietnamese community about Boy Swallows Universe and how the community is depicted at that time?
Well, they're very, very excited about it, and it was quite touching because, you know, I was having dinner with some family friends of Mum and Dad's, and they're from Saigon, and when I said that I was doing this play and I was, you know, playing a Vietnamamese woman, they were just like, "What? Like, you mean we can come and see that?" I don't want to get too emotional, but it just felt like they're welcome in this space, and and that some of their stories are being told, so that's really meaningful for them and for myself as well. So
Yeah, well, hopefully it inspires more stories.
But,
I didn't realise when I said those words that actually your mum was going to see them.
I loved it.
And they're very blue, like it's really full.
I were coming up with that, and if I knew that your beautiful mum was going to...
I go, oh my God. When you wrote and said my mum did that, I went, oh my God.
But
So
she
does
loved
this-
it.
Oh, good.
Does this mean that people who understand Vietnamese who are coming to the play are going to be hearing even fruitier language?
Yep.
They will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
You'll
right.
hear them roar, and everyone will go, what was that? And you go, oh,
I might have to
don't
do a
repeat it.
crash course. A question from Angela. Is this play only going to be in Brisbane or going to other cities? Do we know? What's your hope for that then?
This is some of the important things.
If you know a great producer
Yeah.
in a truck and take it elsewhere, call me.
Yeah. All right. So it depends, Angela, but hopefully, I would imagine, yes. Eventually, yes, absolutely. And Sebastian asks, not to take away from Boy Swallows Universe, but any chance that all our shimmering skies will hit the stage?
Who asked that?
Sebastian, who apparently thinks you're not busy enough.
I love you, Sebastian. Thank you. Watch that space, Sebastian. Not on, but did he say play or
Stage, he did say stage,
Oh,
movie.
right. Yeah, just watch that space,
All right,
Sebastian.
how's the movie, because the rights were taken up for the movie for this.
Yeah. Well,
Where's that at?
my mate Joel Edgerton.
Yeah.
We email, we talk, we have coffee. We don't. We have had.
You're having a coffee while he talks
But
to you.
he's like seriously like, and they're at the stage of like all these really important media companies sort of throwing offers at him. So like, if that makes sense, it's like Edgerton and like it's this team called Anonymous Content, and that's Edgerton, and that's basically like they've done some amazing stuff, and then this team in London who's done amazing stuff as well, including like Manchester by the Sea and stuff, like that type of quality, and our folks here in Hopscotch here in Sydney, and so their three have the rights, and then the big major media companies throw offers at those three, and then those three choose who they're going to go with, and that's like literally the last conversation I got. Like I just get the odd email, and they're just like, just keeping you updated on this, and there's just massive names that just come in, and you should see their pitch doc. It's insane, like the talent that they just sort of throw off. They just throw a name out there, and my wife and I, we're like in the kitchen, just go, can you believe it? It's just amazing. Yeah. That's just nothing to like a guy like Edgerton. He's like, oh yeah, man, he's on my speed dial. It's like, it's crazy.
All right.
Yeah.
My speed dial. You put him on your favourites, didn't you? But how often? Like,
We don't have speed dial anymore, do we?
That's it. How old are you? Oh, the same age as me.
At home, we've got a rotary dial red telephone.
Oh, by the way, Trent's birthday tomorrow. I've heard.
Who told you that?
Yeah, come on. got my sources. How old are you tomorrow? Go on.
42.
42.
42.
All right.
Yeah.
Happy
Yeah.
birthday.
Thanks, Kelly. Like, man, what a way to spend. Like, I'm done. I'm happy. Yeah.
Look, we might go to some of your questions now. We've got a couple of microphones, so if you want to put your hand up. And, all right. Just your name and who you want the question directed at.
Hi, my name is Jan. And first of all, thank you so much, Trent, for writing such a wonderful book.
Thank you.
We were on holiday a couple of years ago, and my husband Eric wrote it first, and he says, "You've got to read this." And I looked at the first page, and I went, the syntax, the wording, I went, this is sort of like reading Shakespeare to start off with. You don't really get it, and then suddenly you turn the page and you go, I'm getting it now. And I made the book last 72 hours because I could not finish, I didn't want to finish it. So every chapter I just closed it and went, you did what? What's going to happen next? And Eric's going,
Oh, wow.
So my question really is to Tim. When you've got a chapter book like that, which everything just finishes like that, that you go, and the emotion is so high, how do you handle that?
That's a great question. So there are two things. What's difficult about Trent's novel to adapt is that many novels have lots and lots of subplots, and they're easy to move subplots out and just follow the main train. With Boy Swallow's universe, there's not very many subplots. Every bit is intricate to the next bit. What theatre does really well in terms of scenes, and I always, when I'm performing, when I'm writing, I always think of each scene like a staircase going up, and each scene has to get higher and higher and higher and higher and higher, and more dramatic and more dramatic and more dramatic, and then right at the end, you fall off the edge of the universe. That's how a good play works. Well, Trent's work naturally does that. So those scenes naturally climb the staircase dramatically. And so getting the pitch of the scene to what you're talking about, that feel, wasn't that hard because it was already there. The hardest bit was what to kind of leave out. But I feel that we have hopefully successfully managed to be duplicitous in telling the story. So there are, I don't want to give too much away, but in certain sections, for example, there are several escapes from certain prisons. and you can very, I won't say cleverly, well, that was the actors and Sam, but I've written in a way that you actually have two things going at the same time. So we will see two things kind of happening at the same time. Theatre allows for that. It allows for Eli to embody Slim at some points. It allows for that because we will go with it. The audience will go with it. If the actor believes it, the audience believe it. And so I'm hoping that in the script and when you see the play that we've managed to do that. And not just me, the massive collaborative effort, which is the whole creative team and the actors. Yeah. But the book naturally does it. So the play was easy to do in that sense.
Fantastic. Anyone else got a question? We're up the top. Yep, great. Hi.
Hi, my name's Trish, and it's to Trent. Thank you for mentioning Maruka. And
Oh, yeah. Represent.
And Maruka Lifeline certainly has a lot of clothing there that will suit the
I've been there. Yeah.
My question is, from your own personal experience and your characterisation of Eli, you talked about love and optimism as characteristics that pulled him through. What do you think it is also that kept him from loving difficult people? Because that childhood is a traumatic childhood and has a lot of challenges. So what were you also trying to bring through? Because he and his brother were incredibly resilient in a lot of ways. What were you thinking when you wrote those characters?
Oh, that's such a great question, Trish. Really easy to hate people from a distance. We should always get closer. And, for example, my dear dad, Noel, on paper was such a rogue, you know, like had the words F off tattooed on his bottom lip, like inside of his bottom lip and covered in tats. And Jackie House singlet, pretty big on the drink, and but you know what my teachers never understood because they never got closer was that he was the most loving father in Brisbane, you know, and Gary / Lyle, you know, incredibly loving man, you know, to us boys, to me at least. You know, literally the first guy I ever turned to and said, I love you, I said, I love you, Dad. And then he ruffled my hair and said, I love you too, mate, but I'm not your dad. And that guy went away for 10 years, but yet I went on loving him all the way through my teens because the gifts that he gave me through his hard-earned wisdom, like he was in Westbrook. Like you guys all know that place here in, Westbrook is as tough as a juvenile detention kind of place, and basically bred every criminal that ever came through Brisbane. And that was his teens. His toddler years were spent in a drawer being raised by a prostitute. Like that was his bedroom, and Slim, an orphan, thrown around through all sorts of boys' homes across country New South Wales with all sorts of horrible people. And the difference between Slim, Lyle, and the Dalton boys is that we had Noel Dalton in our family, raising us, who loved us like nobody's business. So all a child needs, all a Brisbane kid needs is a quiet house and love. And us Dalton boys had one of those in spades. We didn't have the other by any stretch, but we had that big L word massively, and so, and man, like you talk about taking sort of and caring for people who on paper, like Slim Halliday, like Courier Mail newspaper, Chris Jones is in the house, guys, and thanks so much, mate, for coming. Front page newspapers in the 50s, Slim Halliday, the Houdini of Bogo Road escapes again, and a killer, a guy who got put away for 30 years. Well, in my mum's darkest hours, and she'll tell you on the Cointreau and Ice, is that guy really, really helped her in some of her lowest moments, So can I take his care and can I take that kindness and carry it with me and learn from that if on paper he's a guy who got put away for 30 years? And that's something I've wrestled with for 20 years, even as a journo. How do I write this story about this incredibly flawed person that I'm interviewing? But how do I get closer? How do I find their humanity? And that's what that whole book's about, absolutely, yeah. So thanks for the cool question.
Great question. We got another question? Yep, here and here.
Maruka's still in the play, by the way.
Yes!
Saturday morning in Maruka.
Magic Mile.
There'll be riots
Most
in
magical
those
place in
suburbs
Brisbane.
Don't get a run. Hello.
Hello. My name's Debbie, and my question is for you, Trent. I feel like I've known you forever, and after you reached out to me today, I realised there's a lot of layers to you, and I should have already realised that after knowing what a brilliant author you are. But I'm wondering about the layer in your life, in your education, in your early years. Was there one person or one teacher who really affected you or believed in you where now you can look back and thank them? Or when you headed into journalism, where you've thought back about that teacher and thought, you really, really have affected me, and I'm where I am today because of you?
Oh, Debbie, thank you for your beautiful words. And Debbie's here for an extraordinary reason. And Kathy, this is what I'm talking about. Things are fated, and you won the meet and greet prize, and you're going through a real tough time, and I'm just thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Loretta, we were doing the radio the other day, right? And this is the thing about this weird book, and I'm on the radio helping out Loretta because Craig's become a dad, and it's just we were doing like some sort of it was something about the universe. It was about this book, and your song of the day was about like call in and request a universe song with the theme universe. And this woman named Wanda calls up, and I'm doing like an hour with Loretta, and you know, it's live radio, you don't know who can call in. And this woman, and this is answering your question, Debbie, this woman named Wanda Harris, well, I don't know her name's Wanda Harris, and we'll just spoil the story. But no, this woman named Wanda, and she requests Across the Universe, right, by the greatest pop cultural thing that ever existed. And I say to Wanda, oh man, Wanda, yeah, well, how good's that song? And like, I really like your style. And she's seeming a bit nervous. And the ultra intuitive Loretta Ryan says, you seem a bit nervous, Wanda, or something you said. And then Wanda goes, oh, I shouldn't be. I was his school guidance counsellor. Yeah. And then she goes, Trent. On live radio, it's like, I don't know, what, like 7:30 in the morning on a Tuesday? And she goes, Loretta, you know what I remember about Trent? It's how he was on his last day of school. And I'm going, oh, shit. Like, I know how I was on my last day of school. She could say any number of things at this point. Live on radio with, like, my wife's aunt who's a nun listening, you know. And Wanda proceeds to go, Trent, he was drunk. I was drunk. Sorry, I was drunk. It was the day after the school formal. And she tells this story, though, and she goes, and he came up and he visited my guidance counsellor office, and he said, I love you, Wanda. and then Loretta goes, really? And she goes, yeah. And then she goes, and he didn't just say it, he said, I really love you. I'm just like, thanks, Wanda. Yeah. So, but Debbie, like Wanda Harris, Brian Gents, Brad McLean, Miss Paff, the ancient history teacher. This is all at Nashville High. This is all Brackenridge High. And Shirley Adams, like the English teacher, my brothers, we used to have fights all the time. And one day Shirley Adams pulls me aside and she goes, I'm really worried about you. I see all these bruises all over you. And I'm like, yeah, Joel Dalton, year 11, go get him. You know, but just deeply caring. I don't know if there's any teachers in the house, but man, honestly, you're saints. You know, you're just the best, and you know and I write in there's a lot of teachers I meet doing this sort of stuff, and I just write in everyone. I just thanks for every Eli Bell you saved. Yeah. It's a great question. Yeah.
Anyone else? We've got yep. And then we'll go up here. Yep.
Oh, hey, Eric, yeah.
Oh, good. I'm just wondering, did the need to write take you into journalism, or did journalism create a need to write?
Whoa.
Chicken or the egg?
I'll answer it quick so we can, you know, I can shut the idiot up who's like clearly like, you know, but no, Eric, that's such, I actually often wonder about that. And the only thing I could ever do, and Shirley Adams would tell you this, was string words together. I was like, I still can't do maths, can't help the girls out with their maths homework. That's my amazing wife. And then the more I think about it, there are a number of ways I could have processed some of that stuff that's in Voice Wellers Universe, right? So I could have processed it through the ways that maybe many people choose to do, which is kind of go down the drug road. I could have processed it through bourbon, and I could have processed it all sorts of really reckless ways, because I'm convinced I have the capacity to do that, and I'm on a permanent kind of sort of quest to not do that. And I met this incredible woman when I was 20, and you know, in it really, like, you know, I answered your question, Debbie, regarding teachers, but I met this girl who just sort of showed me the power of writing, and we were journos together, and we were and I wanted to keep impressing her, and it just built, and that was on the Brisbane News magazine, like a little colour magazine that kicks around this city, and then I start to realise, man, that was my thing. That was what it was saving me. It was my gift from the flippin' universe. Like, mate, use that to tell your thing, to process all your stuff, you know? And so, yeah, so I think it was it was the writing. It had to be the writing. You know what I mean? I had to do it. Yeah, and sort of, so it was. Yeah, I don't know which order of the chicken or the egg you asked first, but it was the one about that I had to follow writing as a kind of genuine thing to find a life, and then get a place in the gap and have two beautiful kids who are now 14 and 12. You know, like it's all because of that. You know, yeah. So it's massive. Yeah.
Great question. There's a hand up the back. Just get you the microphone. Just along the...
Trent, Cass George speaking.
Oh, hey,
Hi.
Massive supporter of Queensland theatre. Yeah. Yeah, massive.
Could you share with the audience your MOPH?
Oh, is that all right? That's a real sacred thing that I told Cass. Oh, well, you know, life's important. And my second book, All Our Shimmering Skies, is a lot about this, that life will pass you by if you don't pick up the praying mantis and have a look as it's landed on your arm, you know, or the rhinoceros beetle that's hissing on the plant, or the elephant ear plant that you see arcing in a certain way and its skin looks like an elephant's ear. And you know, like, life will pass you by. In the character in All Our Shimmering Skies, Yukio does that all the time, and Yukio represents this thing called MOPH, and I don't know where it began, but for whatever reason, my wife and I and kids, as a whole family, we have this thing called MOPH, and it means moment of pure happiness. And you are instructed as a member of the 4-person Dalton family that if you spot an MOPH, you have to announce it to the family. Oh, wow. So, that's beautiful. So it's a bit cheesy, but it's like, but I swear, it's so powerful, and it's about recognising the wonder of daily life. Like, flippin' wonder. Like, I met Ngoc, and she tells me the story that she's writing in her, like, MOPH moment. You know what I mean? It's like, as I'm inside her story, she's telling it. That could be an MOPH, and it's the small little wonders, but there's nothing like when your kid just, like, you're on some beach somewhere and it's like the sun's going down and your kid, like your 12-year-old kid, turns to you and just says, "Oh, Dad, MOPH." And it's beautiful, you know, and it's just like, yeah, it's just been this wondrous thing in our family to sort of take stock and realise we're the luckiest bastards on earth in Brisbane, and just like really recognise it with those 4 words. Yeah, thank you. I can't believe you remembered that. Did I mention that? Wow. Yeah, MOPH. This is an MOPH. I'm having an MOPH.
All I've got in my head is the Little House on the Prairie theme going with little Laura Ingalls Wilder, you know, race them down the hill. Any questions from this side of the audience? We've got a hand up? Yeah.
My question to Trent, and maybe even to Tim, the title, Boy Swallows Universe, I'm really intrigued. How did you come up with that? What were you thinking at the time?
Oh, great question. Yeah, three. You know, every journo, you know, the best stories are the ones you can describe in 3 words. Man conquers moon. Person conquers moon. Hitler invades Poland. Boy swallows universe, and it's a journo thing. But it's the kid trying to. He's challenged by that great editor of the Courier Mail, Brian Robertson, in the story. And Brian Robertson in this play, you're gonna love him. Like, he's just the coolest editor, and it's just great. It's a celebration of just great journalism. It's just cool, like the way Tim's written this guy, and. You know, in the play, it's just the same. He challenges him. You know, you've got to, you know, the kid, and I'm guilty of this as a journo. He's so flowery. You know, like I use a lot of words and try and describe things. And this guy's just, get to the point. Tell me a story. 3 words. You've got 3 words, and the kid can't do it first up. He gets challenged, and then he realises those 3 words at the end. Boy swallows universe. That's his story. But of course, for me, that story is you've got to swallow it all. You've got to swallow it all, because you've got to swallow the bad stuff, because the bad stuff is actually the good stuff. You know, and I tell that to like any bloody school I go to. It's just swallow it all. You think it's hard right now, but I promise you, that thing you think is gonna be your destruction is actually gonna be the making of you. And so you must swallow it though, and you must own it. Carry all you own all you carry. That's from my second book. I'm just riffing on the same stuff because it's really important. But that's where that comes from. It's this kind of, you know, swallow it all, everything that happened to you, swallow it and cough it up into something beautiful that you can share with the world, you know. And that's me sort of saying that's sort of what I did. And I swear it came to me two titles came to me. I've never said the second title that I'm about to say. Two titles: Boy Swallows Universe and Tyrannosaurus Waltz. And I haven't written Tyrannosaurus Waltz yet, and I'm really excited to. And but they're just as well as just fated and gifts. And you go, shit, what is that? And then when I worked out what that meant, and then when I worked out what Your End is a Dead Blue Wren, which was even more electrically charged, when I worked out what that was, that's when I had the story, you know. And so it's sort of, again, I mean, there are very deep, weird things at play when I was writing that, like really was. And I just thought that was a really great title, but it worked on that journo level as well. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Great question. Yeah. Great.
Got another question. And right up in the back corner. Take it along. Just a couple of comments. Janelle says, love the MOPH. Thank you, Trent, for sharing your amazing life and journey with such passion, honesty and sincerely. Love both your books. And Catherine says, this has been so lovely to listen to. Our son's writing an extended essay about the book. We'll come and watch the play.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks, Catherine. Thanks, Janelle.
So now your book's going to become one they do in schools where kids go, oh, they made me read that Trent Dalton.
Oh, great.
Oh, my God, what was it about?
I'll be cursed.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, thank you all for a really wonderful night. This is directed to Trent. Trent, I'm Angela. And I had the great privilege of seeing you at Salisbury at the Food Connect.
Oh, yeah,
and
love that.
Just,
yeah.
And you're such
that was a great night.
You are so generous with your time. What I wanted to know was, did you have to go back to some of the places you wrote about to connect deeper with the emotions? Or did you actually just go into your head and pull them all back out of your head? Or did the physical places make a difference to you?
Yeah, that's a great question, Angela. Don't even get me started. Like, I'm sorry, it's like, just get me started, and I'm blah. But I mean, there's so many cool things to say about that question. Like, when I was a kid, I never spoke about any of that stuff. Never. And none of my brothers didn't, none of us ever, and to the point where, I'd freaking lie to people about this beautiful mum of mine, and why am I doing that? About where she might have been or why she's not coming to tuck shop or something. Whereas, what the hell, like, why wasn't I going, she's going through a really shit period, but she's going to be so badass and get through this and going to inspire me and maybe my kids in 2020, or 2021 one day, but you don't know that, and so you throw all this stuff down deep inside and you put it in a box and you lock it away and you become this gregarious journalist who pretends to be afraid of nothing, but in fact he's terrified of everything, and then you become a dad and you realise you've been bullshitting for 20 years. And then you go, damn it, I need to walk downstairs into the rumpus room and start telling the truth. And the minute I did that, that's when really good things started happening to me. So I would absolutely slip into the Dunlop volleys of Eli Bell between 8 and 10 at night. And that kid who was tougher than me and smarter than me, more streetwise than me, but he kind of is me, would help me go back through stuff that was way down here and find it and turn it into something really worthwhile. But the cool thing about waiting all that time that I did and keeping up that facade or whatever that was that I got to see the light of being a dad and having, like, I was raised in a house of men and boys and just like holes in the wall and music by the Pogues and you know, and my life from like 27 to 40 has been Taylor Swift, Frozen, Zac Efron, beautiful young human beings, beautiful. And, you know, just lightness and beauty and hope, you know, the wonder, and you go, oh, that's why. There's the answer, you know. And so it was just this amazing thing where my girls helped me go back there as well without them even knowing it, you know. So it's this multi-layered thing, but it was always there, Angela, always. I could tell you every square inch of 5 Cram Street, Brackenridge, this shoebox houso place we grew up. I could tell it's just in my blood. I could tell you every street in Darra. I could tell you every street in the Gap, you know. And it's like, these are the places of my blood and of this city that I love, you know. And so it was all there, and I didn't have to. My second book in Darwin absolutely had to go up and do the journo thing and take notes, and, you know, but it's that stuff, it was just there. And yeah, the only tough part was what parts of the box am I brave enough to open.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you. This is the best.
Tim McGarry, can I ask you, as somebody who didn't grow up in Brisbane, have you been to these places? Have you done the Darra tour, so to speak?
I have, and that's such an interesting question because I didn't have that in my psyche, so I didn't know what these places actually look. My partner grew up in Brassel and Ipswich,
yeah.
So he said to me one day, you know, we're getting in the car, and I'm going to, because you cannot write this until you go to Darra. I'm going to take you to Darra. And when I got to Darra, I went, oh my God, this is just like the book. I couldn't get over it. I was like, well, and I took lots of photographs, and there was one particular house I saw, and it was like all the houses in Darra are small, but this great big massive kind of brick house that was derelict, and it had these colonnades, and I thought, oh, this is Big Dang's house. It's got to be. So as I wrote those bits, I had that in my imagination. I went to Boggo Road Jail and sat outside Slim's cell for a long time, and that was quite a moment for me. I feel it was quite emotional to do that, to sit there and be there, and then I could imagine it as I wrote it. And I went to the clock tower.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Up to the clock. That's the funny thing, when I went to the clock tower, the lift broke. I couldn't go up. And I went, no, I've got to go up. And they said, oh, it happens all the time, you know. It might come back in an hour. It might be a couple of days.
Wow,
Don't worry about it. And I'm going, no, I have to go up. So I kept going back every hour, and finally in the afternoon, up I went. Yeah. So it was great to go and see those places to give me the feel and the image of what I was writing about. Yeah, absolutely. Very important to do.
Yeah.
And the other thing I did was listen to Trent a lot on podcasts, because he talked a lot about the play. He talked a lot about his family, and he dropped all these little gems in about why he wrote it. So that was a great inspiration as well. I think I heard every podcast you've done, some of them twice.
A few.
I wonder if the cast are going to get the same sort of tour.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nellie has
Get
to
the
take
bus
them on
out.
the tour of Darra.
The mongoose.
On your mongoose bikes. Fantastic. Look, we've probably got time for one more question. The gentleman over the side.
Hi, Chris. This is actually a question for Tim, and that sort of was brought about from that last little bit of talking. When you read the book in that first 36 hours and you could see how it was going to you could see it as a play, without seeing all of those locations, without knowing them, we're sort of going from Darra to Redcliffe to Brackenridge to the Clock Tower. How did you see that as a play and with the collaborative process? And that Trent says the stage is his mind. I really want to see the set now. How did you go about that? How did you start sort of formulating that into a play?
Absolutely, that's a great question. The thing that I love about theatre, the reason why I go, it was because I was attracted to it because it's what I love. It's the bit I love about theatre. And what I love about theatre is seeing relationships on stage. I love a good Barney. I love a good dramatic Barney. I think that's what theatre does really well. It really allows people to let their emotion out, and you get to watch that and you go, this is what happens in my life, but I'm actually able to see it on stage. So what I was attracted to, first off, was not so much the locations, because I did know some of them, but I was attracted to the relationships. And what I think the Trent's life story does is that we can, and I mean this with the greatest love and respect, and I don't, it's going to sound terrible, I think I was about to say it, but what I love is seeing dysfunctional situations function.
Oh, that's a beautiful
thing to
say.
And they function in the work beautifully, and that's what attracted me. It was seeing how this young boy was trying to come to terms with this unbelievable trauma in his life, and seeing how all those adults around him, as much as they were flawed for whatever reason, they had to go through what they went through for survival, many of them, they still had another side to them which was unbelievably beautiful and lovable. And that's life. That's what we're all like. We're all not, none of us are perfect. None of us are perfect. We've all been in dysfunctional situations with families and relationships in our life, and for theatre and for story, that's what attracted me in that first read. That's what jumped off the page to me straight away, was the relationships between Eli and Slim, and particularly Eli and his mum, and Lyle, and all the other characters. There's every character in that book has something to love, except possibly for Ivan Kroll. I'm not sure whether he's got many lovable traits, but everybody else does. Everybody else does, and that's what attracted me initially. More than the places, it was the family and the relationships. Yeah.
Well, it has been a wonderful evening of discussion and insight into Boy Swallows Universe, adapted for the stage by Tim McGarry and brought to the stage thanks to Queensland Theatre, Brisbane Festival and QPAC. I want to say thank you to all those who've made tonight run so smoothly. There were a lot of cogs in this wheel and they've run beautifully. So thank you very much to everyone associated with this, and to my colleagues at the ABC who put in so much work as well. Please thank author Trent Dalton, Tim McGarry and Ngoc Phan.
Okay.
And
can we get a massive round of applause for Kelly Higgins-Devine?
Woo!
That was amazing. That was so well done.
Thank you, honey. Look, I don't think we should end this without singing happy birthday to Trent. What do you reckon? Here we go. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Trent. Happy birthday to you. Hip hip. Hooray! Hip hip. Hooray! Hip hip. Hooray!
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
MOPH. Off the chart. Off the chart. Thank you. Thank you so much.
There are refreshments and book signing out the foyer, so go have a relaxing time, and thank you so much.
Thank you.